Challengers, or welcome to the greatest tournament of Capture the Flag ever held, where you're gonna have dinosaurs, supervillains, fantasy characters, sci-fi characters, and a giant rubber ducky, among other things and creatures trying to, well, capture the flag. What else? This is a game that you can play solitaire. It can also be played with up to 8 players, which is considerable. However, in essence, the gameplay is always 2 players. Basically, if you're playing with more than 2 players, it's a tournament in which there is a series of duels. So you're always playing against one other player at a time, and then people switch seats. With multiple players, you're gonna have multiple of these mats, and players switch seats, and so you're always playing duels. Which also means, interesting enough, that the game doesn't become significantly longer with a higher count of players, because you're always going to have 7 rounds, 7 main rounds. Then the players that did best in these 7 rounds are gonna have a final showdown. But just to give you a sense, if you're playing with, say, 5 to 6 players, we're gonna have these mats in play in different areas of the table. And if this is my card, it tells me where to go to play. So I'll be next to the purple mat in round 1. Then I'll get up and move next to the red mat and play 2 duels there. Then I'll go to the green mat, and so on and so forth. So as you can see, these cards will also tell you where to sit. So people will move around and again have a tournament. Again, 7 rounds played by 2 players or by 8 players is not significantly different in terms of time. If you have an odd number of players, then there is a robot deck that you will be fighting, and so one of the players will be automatized. There will be, again, the AI deck, which has a couple of interesting things going on. I don't want to spoil to you the meanness that the robot deck can create. And the robot deck is also what allows you to play the game solo because you can play alone against that deck. So I played the game solitaire and I played with 2 players, which again is basically how you play the game. With 8 players, you'll just be playing 2P against different people. So, deck management, and that's the main mechanic of the game. Each player starts with an identical deck, and then each round you will get new cards from those 3 decks, A, B, and C, and those cards in those decks are increasingly more powerful. B is more powerful than A, and C is more powerful than B and A. The card that I showed you earlier also gives you the schedule of the kind of cards that you can pick. You will always draw 5 cards. So in round 1, we draw 5 cards from deck A, and then you get to choose to keep 2, and you add them to your deck. In round 2, again, 2 cards from deck A. In round 3, you can draw your 5 cards from A or B, but then you get to choose to keep either 2 from A or only 1 from B. So as you can see, you always draw 5 cards, but different numbers and types of cards that you get to keep each time. So you will be making or remaking your deck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are, for example, the cards that I got in preparation for round 1. You can also discard a number of them and draw back up to 5. So you have quite a selection there. And suppose that I decide to take this one and to keep this one. And then these are discarded there in that section of the holder. So now I have my deck, and my opponent will also have a deck. I just got a starter deck for them, so you see how that works. And so they also shuffle their deck, and they're also ready to go. I didn't give them, you know what, I'm gonna give them 2 random cards for fun. So we are ready to go. Once we prepare our decks, we are ready to go. Also, when you prepare the deck, you can also choose to remove cards from it. You can thin out your deck freely. If they're basic cards, they're out of the game. If they're cards on those decks, they go back to the discard area of their corresponding deck. So we're gonna try to capture the flag, right? First, we decide who is in possession of the flag at the beginning. So it's gonna be light or dark, and it's gonna be dark. And you say, how do I know that? It's indicated here by the background on the card that you were given at the beginning, light or dark. So you know which side of the board you'll be sitting on. So right now, dark, and say that this is dark, has possession. So we draw a card from them, and we put the card there. And the possession, the character in possession now has a power of 1. Then we draw a card from the other deck, and we keep drawing until the person who is not in possession, the team not in possession, manages to equal or exceed the value of the character holding it. And so, for example, now the pig takes that, and the card or cards, you'll see what that means, that were just used go in your bench, which is this line of slots here. If you have multiple cards with the same name, say multiple newcomers, they all stack one on top of each other. That's very nice and cozy. And so, for example, here we have another newcomer, and now the newcomer only has a power of 1, not enough to take the flag from the mighty pig. But now, when you add the champion, that's 5, which is higher than, so now the stem takes this, the pig goes to the bench. And once we do that, we slide these cards underneath, so only the last card is visible because that is the card that is actually in possession. The other people helped take it. And so that's how it works. Now, super important. Yes, you're flipping cards, and that seems like very mechanical, but what the game becomes interesting after a while is when you start having all of these effects. So that, for example, if there are no cards with that symbol on your bench, this card is +2, which applies now. The pig does not have that symbol. And so now the hermit has 4, which is enough to take it from the champion. The newcomer goes on the bench with the other newcomer, the champion goes there. And the game continues. And again, with the effects, there will be also decisions that you're making, such as drawing cards, placing cards in different positions of your deck. So interesting things will happen because of the unique effects there. But the idea is that you continue the round until either a player doesn't have enough cards left to take the flag from the other team, then that team wins the round, or you should place people in your bench and you don't have enough slots, then you lose the round and the opponent wins the round. Now, each round you will collect a victory token, and there are different piles here so that they can go on different boards. Or in any case, the idea is that it's randomized because you don't know exactly how many points you're gonna score. If, say, you win round 1, you may score 2 or 3 points. Usually 2, maybe 3. And the points get better and better as they go. So winning later rounds is a lot more important. And so you see the first round as kind of like, warming up, and the newcomers do their thing, and then probably they're going to be removed from the deck as you prepare the deck and you get more stuff, unless you get powers that interact with them. Who knows? Because there is, of course, huge variety because you have quite a number of cards to select from. So this is the general idea. Again, most of the agency, most of what you will actively do is going to be in preparing the deck. And that's the idea. The game is deck management. Deck building you can also think of. It really is, actually. Although the mechanics of doing it are different from buy a card, But you do get new cards every turn. You do get to alter your deck. What is different, which may feel like maybe too light for some, is then, but are we just playing war here because we flip cards and we see who has the highest total? It's not exactly like that. There is an element of that which incidentally makes the game very appealing to young players, and say, hey, it's kind of like war, but you actually have to use your brain for part of the game, at least, when you prepare your deck. So sure, it's very light, and sure, there is a luck element, but if you create a deck with good synergies and not many cards, so they don't take up too many slots on the bench, or not many different names, or again, figure out ways, there are effects that get things out of the bench. So if you create a good deck, there's always going to be luck, which is good within that context. There's always going to be luck, but also there's definitely a meritocratic element. And look, I was able to win consistently against my kids, and if if it was just luck, well, it'll be 50%, regardless of. I could figure out a synergy, and they're not quite there yet. But that's good. Those are experiences, those, good childhood traumas, they really help them grow as gamers and people. So, where was I? Yes, it's a light game, for sure. But it's fun. It's really enjoyable. And again, that luck element, since you have quite a bit of control on your deck, if you create a good synergy, from time to time, the fact that some really weird draws and your perfectly planned synergy does not work, still good. Still fun. So perfect game again to play with casual players. Great, what I call the second game of the night after players have been playing some really hard game. Then you have a game that you can play that is light and fun, and it's just a nice cool down activity during game night. And the fact that you can play with any range of players from 2 to 8 and still takes about 30-40 minutes. Not bad at all. So definitely a game that I'm happy to have in my collection as a light option, and one that you can just play easily even with large numbers of players. I love the art, so much varieties and so much humor and crazy things on these cards. So definitely I'm very pleased, from the production to gameplay to, well, everything. I'm very pleased with Challengers.